This is one of my favorite parts of this job is when we begin these forums and I get to see many familiar faces and names, and many new as we continue to grow the community of internet service providers that are looking to participate in this effort. You are really key partners to us. We appreciate that you take the time to attend these, to review the materials, and share your questions and comments. And we look forward to working with you on this effort. We also appreciate the other stakeholders who attend these forums to get further insight into our programs and all the ways that the many of you partner with us, share your insights, and we've got people from all across the state, from the offices of elected officials. Really appreciate you taking the time with us today. Give just one more minute or half minute in case anybody's joining, but I think we are basically at critical mass. Richie, I think you'll be doing the slides. Can you bring up the presentation? And so also, my name is Joshua Breitbart. I'm the Senior Vice President of ConnectALL. For those of you who I have not yet met, I lead the State Broadband Office. Great privilege to do so. Joined here by members of our team. Thank them for the work of getting this program off the ground and helping us put this presentation together and supporting our outreach to all of you. So the topic today is the Affordable Housing Connectivity Program. Rich, if you could advance to the next slide. Mostly what we're covering today, this is not obviously a replacement for reading the request for applications, but we want to provide, to orient you to that document as well as that's the request for applications, the RFA, as well as the CFA, which is the consolidated funding application that Empire State Development uses for grant applications. This is going to be a great tool as you participate in multiple of our programs because it allows you to clone applications, log in once, and it'll facilitate the process of engaging with this. But I want to give you an orientation to that. Next slide. So we'll continue to do these webinars as we continue to either seek your input on key upcoming decisions or to share updates and provide orientation to our programs. And we thank you for being on our mailing list so that we can send you invitations when we have this. So obviously today's topic is focused on the Affordable Housing Connectivity Program, the application for which is now open. Next slide. Next slide. So the Affordable Housing Connectivity Program, it's the nation's largest program to upgrade broadband infrastructure and affordable housing and public housing, and provide new options of broadband service for those low-income residents. We have $100 million in support from the Treasury Department's Capital Projects Fund. Projects under that program must be substantially completed by the end of 2026. We are working closely with New York State Homes and Community Renewal to provide funding to internet service providers. And we need the property owners, and we've been getting the property owners to opt into this program so that we can facilitate access to those properties. We think that's one of the great strengths of this program. Is that facilitation, but of course, it being not part of the public right of way, we are seeking them to opt into the program and share key information about their property. So we've been doing that, and we have a substantial pipeline of properties ready to go with this program. Next slide. So the eligible applicants for the program are owners or builders of broadband infrastructure, internet service providers, and managed service providers. The goal of this program is to deliver internet service. So that's got to be a part of what's happening with the funding and the grant applications. The use of funds is essentially the capital costs, fiber, other broadband connections to get to the premises, and then the in-building equipment and wiring necessary to deliver that service. Next slide. The general timeline to get to completion by the end of 2026 is we are obviously at the beginning of 2024. As I said, Happy New Year. I hope everybody's been kicking it off well. And so we are opening the application process. We will then be awarding grants over the course of 2024 and on an ongoing basis until we've expended all the funds. And then as that rolls out, new infrastructure will be deployed and service will be delivered along with the support to make sure people are making use of the service and adopting it and becoming subscribers. We expect beginning in 2025 and through 2026. So substantially complete, as we understand it. It doesn't mean, obviously, the service is over. The service will extend for years beyond 2026. But essentially, the construction installation is essentially complete by the end of 2026. Next slide. So again, when I'm focused on, I'll give you an overview of the request for applications. If you haven't had a chance to review it already, this will be a good orientation to it, but I certainly encourage everybody to go through it. And then we'll look at some of the steps to go through to actually apply. Next slide. So there's a table of contents. Hopefully that's helpful. You'll see that this is what's in it. Overview, background, eligible applicants, use of funds, the timeline overview of the program, and then the application content and scope of services. You can find it on our website at broadband.ny.gov. And of course, you certainly should review those appendices as well. Next slide. So the outline, the application content and scope of services, describes like how to submit successful applications to sections 1 and 2, and application questions and requirements in the consolidated funding application will match this outline. So you should generally, if you read the RFA, if you're prepared to respond to the RFA, that should prepare you for going to the CFA, where you'll see it as a series of online questions to respond to. So that's the goal. We're trying to make it a smooth process. You can download the PDF and review it, and then go to the website. But we don't want you to wait till the last minute, as you'll see, to go to the website. Next slide. So also in the application, you'll find the program requirements, with this general outline. So proposals must address the following requirements: delivering of service that of 100 by 100 megabits per second, participating in the Affordable Connectivity Program or its successor, and we certainly hope that that's sustained. Providing plans that do not have data caps, surcharges, or usage-based throttling. Cannot duplicate federal or state funding. It's got to equitably serve the properties in the proposed portfolio. So we'll expand the portfolios, but we're looking to have a standard and robust offering, and that generally the goal of the program is facilitating a robust broadband marketplace. We want these proposals to recruit, train, and retain a diverse and skilled workforce. to fill good jobs and commit to a 5-year term of service, or the service commitments will pertain over 5 years. And again, the project construction must be substantially completed by the end of 2026, meet all the reporting, transparency, and compliance requirements under the state and federal rules. And so again, as you're thinking about the scale of this effort, so our goal is to reach at least 100,000 homes through this program. So we want you to be thinking about how much of that you could potentially get done over the course of that time. Next slide. Minimum network performance requirements. So we'll be looking at these metrics. Again, 100 by 100. If it's impracticable, for a project to reliably meet that threshold, then you have to provide a detailed explanation of why it cannot. And we'll prioritize projects capable of delivering symmetric gig service. That's an item in our state authorizing legislation. But again, if there are reasons why your architecture or approach won't necessarily meet these thresholds, we'll be looking for explanations of why there's the approach you propose is the optimal one. You can see the latency requirements, service level, network availability, other criteria. These are all laid out in the request for applications. Next slide. The key feature of the application is, and so I should say, feel free to put questions in the chat. There may be some items in the chat where we can give you an immediate answer because it's already on the website, but we'll also be taking questions back and sharing the answers after we've had a chance to review the questions. So the application is a two-step process. There are two sections. The first section is what is open now, where we are looking for you to submit your experience and qualifications, past projects, your organizational capacity, the approach you'll take to delivering broadband service, and as well as the geographic areas that you can serve or would serve, and the minimum and maximum number of homes that you'll be able to approach. And the reason why we're looking for minimum and maximum is, again, the maximum is thinking about that timeline of what can be completed, substantially complete by the end of 2026. The minimum is because we understand that there may be markets or metropolitan areas that you're not operating in now, but if you had a sufficient scale of new customers to serve through this program, you might begin operating in. And obviously that facilitates a robust broadband marketplace, which is part of our mandate from the governor and the legislature. So those are things to think about. What are your qualifications? What's your past experience, organizational capacity? What's your general approach? And what do you propose to get done? We will score those sections, and every eligible applicant, based on an approved Section 1 application, will then be available, able to respond and receive notice of Section 2 project proposals. So these will be property specific for portfolios of properties, and I'll explain that in a second. But that's where we'll get into more of the cost and the specific approach, the approach you'll take to those properties. And you'll see there'll be portfolios of certain sizes, and respond to those. The combined score of Section 1 and Section 2 is what will determine the awards. Section 1, in order to apply for Section 2, you have to go through the Section 1 process. If you do not respond to a particular portfolio, you will still be eligible to respond to subsequent portfolios. Next slide. Again, understanding where the service areas are and where the vast majority of, Richard, do you mind moving the hand off to the side of the screen so you're not covering Syracuse? Thank you. So we're looking at these 15 established metropolitan areas to identify the markets that you may be looking to serve or you may be able to respond to portfolios in. The vast majority of regulated, affordable, and public housing are in these metropolitan areas, and so this is how we're going to be looking to provide service, because we know that we can't expect you to serve areas that are outside of your service territory. Just as a quick show of hands, I actually want to put a poll up. Richard, if you could put up the poll. We're just going to leave this open for a very brief window, if we can get it up. This is really just a show of hands. This is not scientific, obviously, and this is not, you're not obligated to this, but we just thought it'd be interesting to get a quick response prior to applicants submitting. And this is only for the internet service providers on the call. These are markets that you are in, or are potentially interested in serving. You can check any that apply. And again, just if you could take 10 seconds, just go down and click through. Not scientific, we're not holding you through it, just show of hands. We thought that would be an interesting thing to just put up. Okay, we can take it down, see how many responses we got. And if you hold that aside, Richard, for the moment, unless it pops up automatically, we can take it down. Thank you. So that's the general idea, and you can see these are established metropolitan areas, and this list is provided. You'll be able to similarly have a checkbox with minimum and maximum number of units that you'd have the capacity to complete by the end of 2026 within each of these markets. Next slide. So how will we assemble those portfolios? It will be, so again, we've been building up this pipeline through outreach to property owners. So these property owners are opting into this program. So they are expressing their interest in participating in this and working with you. So we think that is, of great value to you. But again, because so we're going to have points of contact and all that information together. We'll be collecting additional detail, but the way we'll assemble these portfolios, the size will be based in part on the volume in the pipeline. It'll be also based on the input we get from the Section 1 applications in terms of minimum, maximum size that the variety of participants in this program are capable of addressing. And so it won't be all of the properties in a particular market. There'll be portfolio of a certain size that we think multiple applicants will have the ability to serve. And we might put multiple portfolios out at once, so that if you're a smaller internet service provider or managed service provider, you could respond to just one. If you're larger, you could respond to multiple. And that's how we're trying to move through to 100,000 units across the state in this time frame, with the maximum amount of participation from the best applications. When we provide the portfolios, we'll share the information that we have about the properties. So that'll include things like the number of buildings, number of rental units, the affordable housing ones that will be required under this program, information that we have about construction year materials, building heights, common area square footage, basic features that we think can inform your approach. It may or may not be complete. We're collecting as much information as we can, but the idea is generally that we will share the information we have. You'll respond to the Section 2 with a preliminary proposal, and based on the conditional award and approval of that scoring, you'll be able to advance to getting more detailed information through direct engagement with the direct facilitated engagement with the property owners. Next slide. And I think it noted on that also that yes, there are some properties that are outside of the 15 metropolitan areas. They are certainly eligible to this program, as long as they have regulated affordable units. And we will either put those out as separate portfolios for nearby regions or package them into nearby regions. So Section 2, is for those who submitted Section 1 applications that have been approved. Each Section 2 application will require that you have that Section 1 application in place. But again, you'll be able to respond to multiple Section 2 applications just within the areas that you've applied to serve. So Section 1 applications for those areas where we're sharing portfolios, they will be notified that those Section 2 portfolios are now available. And we're expecting that the first portfolios will be announced by March 2024. So in order to be able to review your Section 1 application in time for those first portfolios, we'll say this later again, but we're asking you to get your Section 1 application in by February 16th. Again, if it gets in later, you might not get the first portfolios, but we will continue to approve new Section 1 applications, and those Section 2 portfolios will be made available on a rolling basis as we assemble that information from the participating property owners. So again, each Section 2 application, there'll be separate applications, and the platform allows you to clone the application. So you won't have to fill in all the information each time. You'll be able to basically clone a Section 2 application and then go in and change just the things that change based on the specific portfolio that you're responding to there. And we'll get into the cloning process in a second. Next slide. This is the application evaluation criteria. Again, you can see that there's scoring for Section 1 and scoring for Section 2, and that the ultimate scoring will be the combined factors. And there's some things where we think the bulk of the information is generally applicable, but we do also want to consider the specific approach that you are taking for each of these portfolios, because these are people and homes and property owners, and we do want you to be able to take those into consideration as you develop your approach to network quality and the technical approach to how ready you are to operate in that market, the kind of impact you'll have on digital equity and workforce within these particular communities, and then obviously the cost and approach from a business standpoint will be specific to the portfolios, as well as the conditions in those buildings, communities, and surrounding areas. Next slide. So in terms of the timeline, the RFA has been issued. We received questions. We'll continue to accept questions about the program, and we'll be putting that information up on our website. The Section 1 application is open. Today is the RFA information session, and we will be providing question responses. We may provide them on a sooner basis, and anything that's been updated by the time we're ready to send out this presentation and recording this presentation, we will include with that. But we certainly encourage you to check the website regularly, as anything may be updated in terms of response to questions or any updates to the RFA. The request for applications will note the date of the vintage, and there'll be a change log in the back. So if anything is changed in the request for applications, you'll be able to see specifically what has been changed in that process. As I said before, based on that February 16th initial deadline, we'll begin opening applications for Section 2 in March, and then proceed to selecting initial grantees. Again, there will be a period of time. What we don't expect is that everybody in that first portfolio tries to visit and do site visits on any of the properties. But we will anticipate that will happen in the process after a conditional award has been made, and then proceeding all the way through to completing all the projects by December 31st, 2026. Next slide. I think I went backwards. I think that is probably now we move on to the next section. I'll talk a little bit about the consolidated funding application. Or maybe we've got this side in duplicate. But if we go to the next slide. Okay, so how to apply using the consolidated funding application. Next slide. So the key thing here is because this is a standard application, it's not specific to ConnectALL. There are a few initial steps to go through before you get to what you're going to recognize from that Affordable Housing Connectivity Program request for applications. So the first thing you need to do, and I would suggest that everybody go ahead and do this sooner rather than later, even today, is create an account by registering at that link on the left. And I think maybe we'll drop the link in the chat as well. So once you click on it and it's open, leave it there. As soon as we finish the presentation, you can go ahead and create your login, register account if you haven't done that already. So you will receive an email token that is required to access the consolidated funding application going forward. So save the token so that you've got your way of returning to your applications and your particular experience of the CFA. Next slide. So the project name is for your reference only. So this is how you will keep track of what you're doing once you create a new application. Again, you can use that naming convention for simplicity. Next slide. And we'll send this all out so you can use this as a guide, and we'll provide some additional supporting information. And any questions about the CFA, let us know. You have to select the appropriate program. So where you'll find that is under Economic Development Programs. You'll see Affordable Housing Connectivity Program Section 1 application. So you take those two steps to find the particular application you're looking for. Next slide. So it begins with these threshold questions. These are not really about the AHCP. It's basically like what you need to do to just get into the application. So right here, you just say select, you proceed to the next page to continue. And then the not-for-profit information is not relevant. So again, you just click proceed to next page, do this step. Next slide. Well, I think, again, we got to go forwards. Richie, I think we went back. Yeah, next slide. Okay. Okay, now you get to the project location page. This, though, is not to be confused with selecting the region that you're serving, the metropolitan area that you're serving. This is the Empire State Development regions. This information is not applicable to this program. So you can click on any region. Feel free to click on the one where you're primarily located. But again, this is as a general consideration for the use of this application, not specific to this. So click on any region and proceed. Next slide. The documents and the questionnaire tabs are where you will find the questions that are relevant to this application. So this is now where you've gotten to the place where the actual Affordable Housing Connectivity Program application essentially begins. The questionnaire is where you'll find all of the questions. Any of the questions that require an attachment are also located in the document section. So, those are the two things you need to be going through: questionnaire, and then when you are ready to do any of the uploads, you can also find those or check those in the document section. So questionnaire, documents. Once you're at this page is where you're basically getting into it. And again, everything's in the questionnaire is what you'll find in the request for applications, the PDF that you can download. The funding tab is only applicable to Section 2 applications. So we're not asking you right now to submit budget or funding information or request. We're just looking for your responses to the question and documents in Section 1. Next slide. Once we get to Section 2 and applying to Section 2, you'll be notified by email whenever portfolios are published for the areas that you've identified in your Section 1 application. Each portfolio will have, it will indicate what the deadline is, and you have to submit an individual Section 2 application for each one, and you'll reference the particular Section 2 application number. And you'll also reference your application 1 number. So we will, again, be combining your Section 1 application with your unique Section 2 response to that portfolio. So again, and every time, every application has an application number. So that should be easy enough to find. Let us know if that's not clear. And, just to state the obvious, applications could be approved, rejected, or subject to further review pending curing. So if we just think there's a mistake or something, we can follow up with you. But an application to Section 1 does not immediately make you eligible for Section 2 applications. Next slide. So again, a key step and a key benefit of using the CFA, going through those initial steps that to get to this is that you can clone the application. So yes, you will submit a different Section 2 application for each portfolio, but you will not have to go back through and answer all the same questions again. You will clone the application using the cloning application steps that are outlined here in the CFA portal. Most of what you have in, after you do your first Section 2 application, most of what you have will then be copied over to begin a new Section 2 application. You'll indicate the number that you're of that portfolio that you're responding to. You submit the distinct approach you're taking in terms of budget and any other features. You can change anything else that's changed with Section 2, and then based on, again, your Section 1 application and your distinct Section 2 application for that portfolio, will score each portfolio accordingly and make that conditional award. Next slide. So again, just to summarize, the request for application contains the information on how to determine eligibility for the program and how interested parties can apply. The steps you should take are reviewing the request for applications and the appendices that are at that link and on our website. And then, particularly if you've done that already, but go ahead and create an account for New York State's Consolidated Funding Application Portal to access the application. That's that link there. There's an application instructions and checklist document that will help make sure that you've prepared a complete application. So please consult that as you go through the process. It's just reiterating the information that's at the RFA, but it's a handy reference to make sure that you've gone through that process. And any questions that you have, you should email to us at ahcp@esd.ny.gov. Affordable Housing Connectivity Program, Empire State Development, New York Government. We will, please put the AHCP request for applications in the subject line, share your question, and we will be putting that information up on our website so everybody can access it. And again, we appreciate you being subscribed to our mailing list. I have not been following all the questions that are in the chat. Can go to the next slide. So just review the next steps. I've not been following all of the questions that are in the chat. It's possible. Allison, thank you. Allison, the consultant, has been committed to this project and been a great help for us from HRMA advisors. Or Rose, our director of outreach, may have answered some of those questions in the chat if it's something that's already a link or something like that. Otherwise, we'll take all the information back. We've gotten some additional questions in advance of this, as well as some frequently asked questions that we've received in the course of program design. We will be sharing that back out. And then once we get to February, we're seeking Section 1 applications. It should, the sooner the better, really, that you're able to get your Section 1 application in. And again, take a look. This is should be information that's all known to you, because it's about your company, your organization, past work that you've done. So go ahead and get that done as soon as you can. That way, also, if you have any questions, run into any problems with the CFA prior to February 16th, we can respond, we can troubleshoot to make sure that your Section 1 application is in by that February 16th date. And then beginning in March is when we expect those initial property portfolios to be released to those Section 1 applicants in those particular geographic areas that they plan to serve. And that will initiate the Section 2 of the applications, the first round, but those will be continued to be made available as we assemble additional portfolios. Then we will, based on the scoring of those, proceed to matching conditional awardees with the property owners to then proceed to having a final grant award and making the announcements of the initial grantee selection. So again, this is all going to be available at our website, broadband.ny.gov, or you can email us, and I think hopefully the next slide will say our email address as a reminder if you don't have it, and there it is. So any questions that you may have, please email them to ahcp@esd.ny.gov. That is, we will take everything that people said in the Q&A. And thank you again, Allison, for what you were able to respond to in real time. This also means that if you reserved a full hour for this, and thank you again for your support, we can leave this up for a little bit so people can add questions in, but you can also take this time, and we can drop the link in one more time to the chat, so you can go right now to download the RFA if you haven't already, and right now to create your account on the CFA. Richie, do we have the results of the poll? Can we share that? That might be a technical step too far. Okay, and I guess scroll down. Oh, we can each scroll down. Wonderful. Well, look at that. So wonderful. Thank you for everybody who did respond. Totally not scientific. But as you can see, we've got interest across the state. This is great to see. Truly, appreciate the breadth and the reach that this program can have. We really appreciate the support of our congressional delegation that supported the American Rescue Plan Act and the funding that's available to this program through that has supported us throughout this process to secure this award. Greatly appreciate the support from the Treasury Department and people at the Capital Projects Fund program, our partners at New York State Homes and Community Renewal, the support that we get from Empire State Development, the team at ConnectALL and our consultants, and again, and critically important, all of you. The last thing I do just want to note about the application, could we just come off the screen so we can just see faces again? Well, you'll only have to look at me for a brief second, but I do just want to add one important note about this program. We'll stop sharing. And I'll add just one final note. And thank you again, thanks for holding on to this, but I do just want to emphasize that as we go through this program and we're talking about, large numbers of units and buildings and metropolitan areas all across the state, but one thing to keep in mind, and this will have an impact on your scoring in the program, is that each one of these is a home and a place where people live, people, generally who struggled through the pandemic to stay connected to the internet, and all that entailed. And that is why this funding is available. And to think about the affordable and public housing in the state, and that it tends to be people who obviously lower income, but also that are more seniors than the usual the rest of the New York population by average, people with disabilities. And when we have that information, because it's part of the covenant of the property, we will share that. But we do want you to be thinking about, not just, the wires and the technique and the equipment, but who could you be partnering with to make sure that the right supports are in place, and all of that, as you'll see in the RFA, will be considered. So, if you've got those partnerships in place, that's great. If you have that unique approach and partnerships to those particular populations, but be thinking about that as you look at these areas and these opportunities, so that when you deliver the service, we know that each one of you and will score you based on the approach to network quality, service, price, all those aspects. But ultimately, we're looking to transform homes and communities, and people need additional supports for that. We want to see you working at that level of partnership to have that impact. And we'll continue to provide those supports, and we can facilitate that. But we really truly want to think about internet service providers, managed service providers, broadband infrastructure owners and builders who have that complete holistic approach to these homes, to these buildings, to these communities. So with that note, I will again just thank you for your time today. And I look forward to speaking with you further, hearing from you, reviewing your questions, getting back to you, and reviewing your applications. Thank you. And again, we can I'm going to turn my camera off. Everybody can depart if you'd like. Please, again, take this moment to create an account in the CFA. And if you've got any further questions, you can drop them in as people are signing off. Thank you again. Thanks, Richie, for handling the slides, and the whole team for supporting us here.